Hi, my name is Ellie Brocklehurst, and with me today is my beautiful friend and co-host Beck Nadalo, and together we are full-timers. As two working mums with small children and hubbies in tow, we've come to the realisation that the best way to define us and a lot of people out there is that we're full-time. Full-time mums, full-time wives, full-time employees, friends and daughters. And with all that full-time comes with it a lot of weight, obstacles and constraints, but also a lot of great opportunities. We've been searching for some way to validate our feelings about what it takes to be a woman in today's world. So rather than continue that search, we thought, fuck it, let's start it. Welcome to the Full-Timers Club. Hi everyone, we're back to Full-Timers Club. I'm Ellie.
And I'm Beck.
And we are so passionate about this topic, aren't we, Beck?
We are.
So why are we choosing to talk about this topic?
Gosh, I feel like in the last 2 years since I got made redundant, and then it's like, I don't know if that sparked a chain reaction. I have so many friends who have gone through this. Either they personally have, or their husbands or wives, or we've got friends, or I'm having to do them myself. And I just, up until me being made redundant, I didn't know anyone who ever had. And I also had zero appreciation for the impact that it has on the individual.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I was going through it, and now that I look back, I didn't know where to go. I didn't know who to talk to. I didn't know how the fuck to deal with this. Like, this event threw me in an absolute tailspin.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this was one of the first topics we talked about. We were like, we have to have an episode on this.
I think it's also, I remember seeing you had just found out and we went out for dim sum in Tim Ho 1.
Yeah, we did.
And you were obviously devastated. I didn't know anyone that was made redundant, and I think the first thing you said was, I just didn't think I was that bad at my job. And it was just that sense of, I guess, you thinking you weren't good enough is not a reason to be kind of down on yourself, but it's almost the first thing I thought of when I got made redundant is clearly I'm bad at what I do. I'm not a valuable member of this team.
Yeah.
People don't recognize me for my worth. And it was one of the most demoralizing times I've ever felt in my whole life.
It's funny, I don't remember saying that.
You don't?
No, I don't. And the reason I say that is because, and I think this is why it's interesting, it can hit people in different ways. So to give context as to what happened, so I'd always been in the agency world.
Yeah, with me.
With you.
Yeah, left me again, second time.
Yep, exactly, that's right. Third time lucky someday. And I got this amazing offer from Meta, and I was like, this is it. This is my forever job. And I came into it and I was so freaking excited. Like, I counted my lucky stars every time I walked into that office. I thought I had found my dream job and dream organisation. And I never forget, I can't even remember what it was. Someone talking about restructures, and I was like 4 months into the job, and I was like, surely, like, we're not going to be impacted. And they were like, no, God, no, we'll be fine in APAC's the growing market, blah, 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 blah. Anyways, long story short, I was impacted, and I was one of 11,000 people, and it was November 11, and then went on to be, I think, another 30,000 after that. And the way it happened was pretty brutal. I got an email saying you're no longer part of this organisation. And look, when you're doing it at that level of scale, there is no great way to handle it. So it wasn't the way it was handled that I got upset at. It was just this like level of shock that it had happened to me. And even though you're 1 in 11,000, you still take it very personally. But I think the thing that's so hard is when you've always been a high achiever and your self-worth, but also your self-identity is so much intertwined with your job and like, you know, always being good at your job and always being a senior person, and you've always been the high achiever in your role. When you take that away, and like for me, I was like, who am I? And like, how are people going to view me? And I was so caught up in like how people would view me. Yeah. And I was petrified of like being felt sorry for. And I think I just felt like so much shame and embarrassment. And so there was that side of things. And then there's the other side, which is my husband doesn't earn anything at the moment. I am the breadwinner, and I'm a foreigner in a country where I'm a visa holder and my whole family's attached to that. What the fuck am I going to do financially? Like, it just upended us and me particularly so badly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like no one talks about these things. And maybe the conversation has definitely started because, you know, Meta, Google, all the big boys have gone through their redundancies. They did a massive layoff. And so I think because of that, people started talking about it. But it really wasn't until that, I think, that I saw conversation actually happening around it.
And I think that the willingness to help those people impacted is really obvious now. Like,
Yes,
you know, on
for
LinkedIn,
sure,
there's like
for
all those
sure.
kind of, and people, it's funny because I actually think not that they celebrate the redundancy, but there's no judgment passed at all.
No.
And it feels very different to maybe what it was right when you did get made redundant.
Yeah, totally.
Which was not that. There was no openness to
Totally.
talk about it.
Yeah.
You would never, I think it took you a while to post on LinkedIn to say I've been made redundant, right? Like it took you, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
whereas now people are doing it and it's
Yeah.
almost instantaneous. Everyone's like, hey, I'm leaving. I'm looking for work. Let me know if there's any roles.
Yeah. But I don't think it lessens the impact. I really don't. Tell me about your experience. What happened?
I feel like mine was dramatically different, but the emotions and how it felt at the end feels exactly the same. So I was on maternity leave. I had just had my second baby, Mia, and about 4 weeks into that, or maybe it was 5 weeks into that, our companies merged. To be honest, there was always a part of me that was like, I'm not in like the best place right now. I'm not there when it's like really crucial time. But I had been invited back by the organisation to help with a lot of the communications development. I got invited back to meet with the global CEOs and do growth sessions. So I kind of was like, oh no, this is cool. Like I'm being invited back. And I felt like I had showed my commitment by coming back to do those sessions when my baby was literally weeks old. So the problem is that I knew I was trying to carve out a role for myself to make myself more valuable because everyone kept saying you need to kind of show yourself, be visible, make sure they hear from you.
God, that's so hard when you're on maternity
And
leave.
so hard, right? And I also had like a 3-year-old who was very demanding, you know, and I actually think it was hard on him, you know, just me being in and out. And I just wasn't in the headspace to be like able to commit. And I wanted to, and I did try, and I feel like I gave it my best shot. But anyway, we then went back to Australia, and this was now going into my third month. And a meeting got put into my diary pretty much just after New Year's on a Friday afternoon. And I was like, doesn't feel like it's going to be a good meeting.
Yeah.
And boy, was it not a good meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The difference, I think, to my experience was I remember you having all your information, right? Like when you were made redundant, you knew the pay
I knew
packet,
exactly
you knew
what
exactly
was
what was happening.
Yeah.
I had nothing. There was a complete lack of clarity around the process that I was meant to be going through. On top of that, it was just, in my opinion, handled so badly because I was the only one. And I think it made me feel even worse because if I was part of a group, it would have felt less personal.
Yeah.
But it felt deeply, deeply personal.
Yeah.
Like I was not really welcome back in that organisation, and it was crushing.
Yeah. And it's brutal as a mum on mat leave, postpartum couple of weeks or couple of months. And it's, you know, it's so...
Oh, and the one thing that was the worst part about it, my breast milk dried up.
That's right. I remember that.
Literally, like in 2 days.
That's the impact.
And so actually what was really interesting was I knew that would probably happen because when we merged, my milk dried up. And I got a lactation consultant in, and she was like, right, well, now we know your body under stress is going to do this. So we talked about all the strategies of if I got sick or if I went back to work. Like we kind of had already realized that my body's, you know, physiology was just going to react in this way. So the second I got made redundant, it was almost like in my mind, I think I went out and bought like tins of formula.
Yeah.
Because I was like, right, well, I know the first thing that's going to happen is I'm not going to be able to provide.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and that was, you know, then that's another level of devastation that
totally
something that's completely out of my control now impacts my baby.
Yeah. And how did you feel like coming weeks and months?
Really angry. Like, and I've said this to you before, it's not about being made redundant. And I think that's where, you know, the reason why this podcast became so important to us, and particularly this episode, was it wasn't necessarily being made redundant. It was the lack of empathy around the whole process.
Yeah.
It was I'm a young mother. I've worked really hard. I've come back when you've asked me to. I feel like I've shown my worth.
Yeah.
I do feel like I've been a very valuable member of this team. To not have at least the basics in order to make me feel more settled.
Yeah.
It just felt really morally unethical.
Did you go through the stages of grief?
Yep.
I totally did.
I did.
I actually remember like going from like really angry to depressed and literally thinking, oh, you're going through the stages of grief right now.
Yeah, it is. And you know what's funny? It's the grief of who, exactly what you said before, of who you are and what you tie yourself to.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's been so many good things that have come from it. And one of the best things that came from it was that it made me really know and confident in myself that I'm a better mum if I work.
Yeah.
That because I draw so much self-worth from what I do professionally, I just knew the pursuit to find something new was like relentless.
Yeah.
And it happened. And I remember getting onto my LinkedIn, I think like 3 days later, and emailed everyone I knew, and was like, firstly, very open about the redundancy.
Yeah. And people should be open about it. There's nothing, like, as much as I feel like I felt shame, there is no shame in it.
No.
It happens every day to the most incredible people, and it's often got nothing to do with them, but a situation or a circumstance of the organisation they're in.
Yeah.
I vividly remember being, I think I was in like a Guardian or Watson's in Takashimaya, and I couldn't stop crying.
For those that don't know, Takashimaya is just stunning. It's like a David
Department
Jones
store.
equivalent department store. I love Takashimaya.
Do you?
It took me so long to pronounce that word.
Do you really? Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. It's so nice.
Is it?
Yeah. That one and Tangs. They're my two favourite.
Interesting.
Anywho,
Interesting.
continue.
There you go. But I remember being in one of those and I just couldn't stop crying. And that was the point. I think I went to the toilet, sat on the toilet, bawling my eyes out. And it was the point I was like, I need some help because I'm not handling this well. And a lot of the people who also got impacted at the same time were also not great, but not as bad as I was. And I think that's where I knew, I need to get some professional help here. And I made an appointment with my life coach, who I see when things are tough or I just need to talk through something. And I would say to anyone going through that situation is know the point at which you need to speak to someone. And it is okay, because the thing is often the redundancy, and for me, brought up so many other issues like tying your self-worth to your job or to your sense of achievement. The other thing it taught me is how not resilient I am. Like I am not resilient. I haven't faced enough career adversity. Like, you think, how do you build resilience? You get knocked down, you come back up. I haven't been knocked down enough.
And isn't that interesting, because that I think goes back to your point around the fact that it hit you so hard because you have climbed.
Yeah.
You've just constantly been on this great path. And to have that happen to you is shocking and devastating. And it's funny because I was just thinking as you were saying this that I have tried hard to carve out a role for myself, as you said earlier, when we first did our intros, around trying to find a role for myself. And I had not got there. Like I was just about to get to a point where I was like, I feel like I've now nailed.
You found your groove.
I found my groove. I know where I actually belong in this organisation. It took me ages to get there. And then for this to happen, I remember saying like literally, what do I do? I think I looked into tech sales. I think I was like, no one is going to take me seriously because the worth that I'd built was so tied to people within that organisation.
Yeah.
And whilst I had them all as advocates, which was amazing, and so many of them offered to do reference letters and it was incredibly, humbling to have so many people do that. But that was my fear, was I hadn't really climbed yet. I hadn't got to that point where I was really comfortable knowing that like I'm employable. Yeah. I felt completely unemployable.
Yeah, yeah. And dispensable. Totally. Do you think having been on mat leave, it has kind of affected you in that way, or made you even question like going for a third, or like what was the impact? Because that's a whole nother story in itself.
I'm definitely angry that I feel like it impacted the very precious time you have when they're that little. Yeah. Because, I think for those month 4 and 5, I was practically not around. I was just looking for a job. Yeah. I was working my CV. I was doing interviews. I was doing whatever I could to try to get a job. Yeah. And I'm angry that I was taken away from my daughter at such like a crucial age for her. Like, 5 and 6 is when they really start kind of growing up a bit from being a blob to be able to sit. Massive milestones. But interestingly, as I said, I think it made me really hungry to find a really great job, not just any job, because I knew I wanted to be somewhere where I felt valued and I loved what I did, but equally somewhere where I felt like I'd be happy to be away from my kids. Because that was the thing I really realised. I don't want to be somewhere where I'm not going to be valued or respected as a mother, where my choice to leave at 5 o'clock is going to be criticised or, it made me go like, all right, I now know exactly what kind of organisation I need to go to so that my choice to be a working mother is fully respected. And boy, did I land there.
Yeah, you did. You've really landed on your feet.
I was very lucky.
You were very lucky.
I was very lucky.
And I think your situation is probably the rare one.
It is. I completely agree.
As I said before, so my husband had his own business at that point, wasn't paying himself a salary, so it was all on me. And it has been for a while, which is fucking hard in itself. And so I just was like, okay, I need to get a job. And this is the thing I've then subsequently said to so many people afterwards is get yourself a job and keep looking. Like it doesn't need to be your forever job. And I found a great, great role that I probably knew wasn't quite for me, but I was like, I need to have something secured because we need to have an income coming in. And I had to swallow so much pride accepting it. And I remember telling people where I was going and they were like, that's interesting. And you obviously can't say like,
oh no, it's cool. I'm gonna be,
like you can't say that. You have to be like, I'm really excited. And I was excited because it was with great people and interesting and things like that. Again, like this brings up so many emotions and feelings and self-worth and everything else that that's really hard to deal with. But it was hard. It really was hard.
I think I look back and go, like we've talked about this before. I'm incredibly grateful now for it happening because I think what you've just said is a really good point to raise, which is it's taught you a few things. And one of those things is that you are not beholden to a company. Yeah. Right? Like they don't owe you anything. And they will never have your back over theirs.
Totally.
So I think going through redundancy, you fully understand that.
You are completely dispensable.
100%.
Yep.
And don't ever think otherwise.
Yep, totally.
And I think that's what makes it great when you do say what you just said, which is you go find somewhere, you do that for a few months and you get out because then you willingly investing in something that you're not really quite sure about. You would never have done that. You would never have left a company, gone somewhere and been like, I'm just going to test it out for a month and then gone someone else. Like it's the jump out of somewhere is a lot harder if you haven't been kind of pushed.
Yeah.
And so I like that has been quite a good lesson that it's okay to choose you over anyone else.
I mean, look, you and I have both worked for enough of the big networks to know that anyone is dispensable. No one is indispensable. So I've never been under an illusion that like I am useful until I am no longer useful. And now running an agency, I know how it works and the margin pressures and that's why I think no one should ever take it personally because like this is all numbers, right? And you can be the best at your job, but you can also be the most expensive person. Yeah. And as a result, you're on the chopping block. Like, so I don't think I would ever take it personally. It's more just the impact it has on your self-worth and self-identity, I think identity. Yeah. And I realize how much I tie my identity to a sense of achievement. And I think as a result, I wouldn't say I'm grateful for the experience. And I also don't believe in things like things happen for, everyone was like, this is happening for a reason. I was like, shut up. Like if one more person tells me things happen for a reason, I will punch them in the face. I actually sent that text message to my sister-in-law.
Isn't that funny? I feel completely differently.
Do you?
Because I think I've had an incredibly positive experience post. Again, I am the anomaly. What has happened to me is not that common. So I actually look at it and go, very glad I'm not in that organisation. Yeah. Super grateful for the new boss that I have who is a father and who fully respects my choice to be a working mum. Yeah. I've landed the role and title that I'd literally pitched for myself in my old company. Yeah. So in my eyes, this is all very serendipitous. It all
worked out very,
beautifully.
very well.
It was all wrapped up in
Totally.
a nice bow.
Totally.
So I feel very differently.
Yeah.
But you are right. I do think I come from a very different angle to this situation.
Totally. And everyone's experience is completely unique and different. And I don't think you can apply like one ethos to it. And I think, so even though I say things like, I don't believe in things happening for a reason, when people say, but look at the role you're in now, I'm like, yeah, because I made it happen. Like, it's not like I sat back and waited for the universe. And I think that's the thing is you make the best of what you have and you make things happen.
Yeah.
You're not waiting for the universe to do it for you. But the one or the few things I would say that I've learnt from it, and I always try and reframe every situation, negative or positive, into what am I learning from this right now? And the things that I would learn is, or take from it, is never sit idle. Like I got that job and I like ripped up my CV and was like, I never need to think about a next job because I'm going to be here forever. And I would say now I'm like, okay, I always need to be cultivating or at least thinking about what's my next step and not relying on that current job, but thinking about all the different things you can do around the side, your side hustles, how you're building contacts, networks, relationships that might be fruitful for the next journey or for, if shit hits the fan again.
It's funny you say that because I've always thought of you like that. And it's interesting because actually, when you went to Meta,
I was done.
Stopped.
Yeah.
I mean, you had this is the thing with Meta, right? You had amazing maternity cover. You have all these benefits that kind of far outweigh any other company. And so that's how they hold people. It's a strategy.
Absolutely. I would have a second baby if I was still at Meta.
Yeah.
Like I would say one of the big reasons we haven't is because I don't have that level of insurance coverage or mat leave like I would have had there.
So this is how greatly redundancies can impact your life.
Absolutely.
It's literally whether or not you have had a second child.
Absolutely.
Which we will unpack in another episode.
Totally. But I think the most liberating thing is no one is indispensable and you have to know that and try your darndest to make sure that you are bringing value to your organisation and
upskill. Constantly learning something new.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other thing that maybe we can finish the episode on is paying it forward. I can't tell you how many people helped me, whether it was contacts. Like the one thing that I always say now and people said to me at the time was, look at my LinkedIn contacts and tell me who you want me to introduce you to. Like every single person was just like, how can I help you? And I took so much away from that because, people supporting each other. And I think now like that's the best thing I can do. And so anyone that reaches out to me and is like, look, I'm looking for a job. I'm like, I don't have anything, but let's have a coffee because there might be someone I can introduce you to. Again,
I think it's just letting them sit in the feelings and being there to support them, if that's just listening over a coffee or introducing them to people.
Yeah, for sure.
It's powerful.
I mean, there's so much to unpack in this episode, but I think we should leave it there. And I would like to say, like, if anyone is listening to this who has been made redundant, impacted, or
or fears the impact even.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Need some help.
We're here.
100%. Hit us up on LinkedIn.
Okay. This has been Full Timers Club. You're with Ellie
and Beck.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.